Hello and welcome to Autosport's top 50 drivers of 2024. We're getting towards the end now. We are in the 20 to 11th episode. I'm Kevin Turner. I'm joined in the studio today by Gary Watkins and Haydn Cobb to run through the drivers who made our list. Okay, gents, right, let's go. Let's go into the first of our top 20, and this is the person I was referring to earlier when we talked about Sébastien Ogier, someone who I don't think is old enough to have deserved a part-time. He was 23 at the start of the year, I think, and he went, it's been really hard winning a couple of World Championships, I'm just going to do a part-time campaign. I will, however, say he did make some good use of it by jumping into some other machinery, but in 20th it's Kalle Rovanperä. So, Hayden, am I being a bit unfair? He did rock up and win 4 WRC events while he was on his part-time series.
I was feeling exactly the same as you at the start of the year when we found out that he was doing part-time campaign for all the reasons you just listed. But then when he did step in,
he was mega
quality, and that super sub appearance in particular gets called up because Ogier has a crash in the recce, and he goes on and wins the entire event, falling asleep in front of onboards, hadn't done no prep. His co-driver's so he was fixing a jet ski somewhere, wherever he was, and had a nice time, and his co-driver was getting a tattoo done, zero prep, goes in, wins it, which sort of shows he's the level above. No disrespect to the full-time regulars of this year, but I think to say that crashes, you can't excuse that, let's say.
So we're saying the best 2 drivers in the WRC were the 2
in my opinion, yes.
Part-timers. One a young kid, one the
other end of it. Yeah.
I mean, I do feel sorry for Tom Howard, who had to do the WRC top 10 drives, because I think the best rally drivers in the world at the moment are Rovanperä and Ogier, and I would suggest possibly even Sébastien Loeb
when he rocked
still. But they didn't do it. None of those did full seasons, and Thierry Neuville did, of course, finally win the World Championship after many years.
It's a tradition, of course, of part-time or not full championship campaigns in WRC, where there isn't in other forms of racing. That's true. If whoever has decided that I'm just going to do 12 races next year in F1, I don't think their team owner would be particularly team bosses.
No, although I'd kind of respect it if they went, I'm doing 16 because that's how big a World Championship should be, and the other 8. I'm not.
Well, Rovanperä doesn't get that excuse because there's not even 16 World Championship rounds in rallying. But he still had a great year when he got in the car, led every event that he did, and won 4. Was it? Which was the most of any driver.
Like Ogier, he did have not as many as Ogier, but he did have his mistakes as well. So that counts against him. So otherwise, his strike rate would have been even more ridiculous. And of course, didn't he Paul Square Cup Benelux?
Yeah, that's right.
And he had a go in a Red Bull Formula 1 car.
2012.
Okay.
Well, 2012 is not that age.
But
doesn't qualify for reclassification of historic.
No, it doesn't. Oh, good national knowledge there. Good work.
But saying that, let's not forget. I'm not going to say the Benelux Carrera Cup is particularly strong.
He's not on the list.
He's not on the
list for that.
No, I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying. I mean, I think I love it when rally drivers come and do well in motorsport, and hate it when someone like Ogier comes and doesn't seem to
be that bothered.
So you're looking back to your Elfords, your Ragnottis, people like Marc Duez, who crossed over and was successful, particularly on tarmac in rallying, but was a great sports car driver.
I mean, you could. This is a different podcast, but you could make an argument for the top rally drivers are the best competition drivers.
Well, they make the transition
the adaptability
to the other world better.
Normally, that's the case.
And Tom Howard is adamant in the case of that if Rovanperä did a full campaign with testing and everything in a single seater, he's convinced he'd do very, very well. Yeah. Obviously, it is very difficult to know until reality and something happens, but he's convinced he would make the transition and be phenomenal.
How good would Sébastien Loeb have been had he have got the Red Bull drive that he always insists he was promised?
At that point, I'm not sure.
He wasn't a young man.
No, but
he late 20s or early 30s.
He's an absolute legend, isn't he? In the champions, they kind of have that yeah, they're going to be successful wherever they turn their.
Well, I saw
minds
Carlos
to, aren't
Sainz Senior, his old man, looked pretty impressive at the Formula Ford Festival, I'm going to say in 1983.
There you go.
Nice.
And years later, he tested the Toyota GT1.
Did he?
And I remember McNish telling me, yeah, the boy was on it.
Nice.
Excellent. That's cool. Right, so number 19. I'm interested to know your view on this, Haydn. Colton Herta. He, for some reason, he doesn't excite me. I don't know why. He's obviously a good driver. He may well end up in F1. Ended up as run-up in IndyCar. It was a late surge really that got him there. I don't know. I felt the same way about his dad. Brian Herta never quite got me going. I don't know why.
The sparkly results or before.
Yeah, well,
standout
actually,
performance.
Brian Herta was completely different. That he was not as talented as
No,
his dad.
that's probably
But
fair.
he did do these sort of made these one-off moves and drives. You know, he was the king of Laguna, wasn't he?
But he doesn't like that though, does he?
No, I don't think. But you know that he had highs and. You know, he had those peaks when he'd pull it out of the bag, whereas I think Colton is just at a higher level.
That's for fair.
Yeah, certainly. And the last couple of years he has struggled for various reasons. And yeah, finishing 10th in the IndyCar Championship 2 years in a row wasn't exactly. And this was the time he was first sort of talked about as the next American driver, hopefully to crack Formula One. Results didn't really stack up. There was a whole super license faff that happened.
Ridiculous super license fat.
Yeah.
Let's put it in context.
And then
I think you're just upsetting the same people.
Yeah,
That's
that's
not getting
fine.
anyone on the list that you've
and
given
so
motorsport.
a sense of resurgence this year, but I think what you mean in terms of being not too inspired by him is he lacks that sparkly headline.
Yeah, maybe I'm
result
being a bit harsh. I mean,
performance.
he's come off the back of finishing 10th in the championship
Yeah.
twice, and then suddenly he's run. He doesn't
runner-up.
seem to be a consistent. But then is that Andretti? Yeah, because Penske
Yeah.
and Ganassi tend to be the ones setting the pace, and maybe McLaren now. You say Aaron McLaren.
Yes.
But then of course being with Andretti is the right place to be if he's going to get back into F1 because
Well.
obviously he's going to potentially be part of the Cadillac program.
Correct,
He's got a bit
yeah.
of a European background, so it's not like it's a complete fish out of water exercise if he does come across.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's on this list because he did a great job in IndyCar this season, so fair enough.
Yeah.
Now we're going to do the next two together because I think they're intrinsically linked and they're put together for a reason.
Yeah.
So 18 is Nick Cassidy, 17 is Mitch Evans, two Jaguar drivers in Formula E
Who couldn't win the championship?
who couldn't win the championship, should have won the championship, and have been two of the best performers in Formula E for the last couple of years, and somehow between them or maybe it's the team. This came up in the Formula E podcast that we did with Stefan Macklin and Karun Chandok, but
What was the conclusion then?
well, I think the reason that Cassidy is behind Evans in my mind is Portland,
Yeah, for sure.
because he
yeah.
threw it off the road when he was basically going to win the championship, and that opened the door for Pascal Wehrlein to come in and beat them both.
There you go.
Jaguar played their part in that by not. Very similar to McLaren in Formula One, just call team orders. It feels like the Jean Todt era Ferrari and Ross Brawn era Ferrari has made everyone super scared of doing team orders when it's really obvious. So we don't want it in round 6 of a 18-round championship, of course not. But when you're into the final knock-ins of a title fight, or you've got one driver that's in it, I guess that's the point, isn't it? They were both kind of
Both
still
in it. Yeah, they
so,
were.
Yeah.
when
Right
you've
to the
got
end as
track
well.
position at that stage,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think would they do something different in future? Well, maybe we'll find out because I think they're both good enough that they'll be in a championship fight again. So
Yeah, a phenomenal team effort, but
yeah.
for the individual, it's difficult. And that's sort of where that's why they have dovetailed each other here, and similar sorts of years as well. So difficult to really put them any higher, that's for sure. But I still think, in terms of their quality, in terms of the wins they did pick up when didn't have mishaps, yeah, two brilliant drivers.
and quite how Jaguar contrived to turn track position in the season finale into losing the championship to Wehrlein.
Yeah,
Amazing scenes.
Yeah.
Amazing scenes. I'd like to
But they
think
did
that.
take the manufacturers.
They did.
Sometimes
And deservedly so.
We forget how much importance manufacturers put on something called the manufacturer's title. You know,
Yeah.
I remember Frank Williams always saying that the constructor's title in Formula One was the most important one for him. He was probably saying that because that's what the FOCA money was paid on. But yeah, and I know for a fact that in WEC, more than one manufacturer pays its drivers bonus not on where the drivers finish in the championship, but where the manufacturer finishes.
Well, that's quite smart, isn't it? Because
team game.
you need them to work together, and
Yes.
you know the drivers are going to be motivated by the drivers' championship, so you need to give them an extra
Well, maybe, yeah.
incentive, perhaps, just to balance things out a little bit.
Yeah,
Right, well, we're going to do the next two together as well
makes sense.
for a similar reason, and I'm going to throw this at Haydn, who I've decided can be our
Fair
NASCAR voice of reason during the top 50.
Reason?
2024. Voice of reason.
Okay.
Well, I see what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a bit harsh.
So we're talking.
16 is Carl Larson, 15 is Joey Logano. So if you're,
I feel like there's a rant about to come. I don't know.
Well, we've had that earlier.
so it's basically, do you reward being good all season? And in my eyes, winning
Yes.
a championship,
yes.
or do you reward the person that goes, I can bin off 75% of the championship as long as I win one race here and then I start winning in the last knock-ins and I get it done in the last race, which is what the Cup requires,
Yeah.
which is what Joey Logano did. So
Yeah.
it's Larson
11th in the full season points. By the way.
11th. There you go.
Yeah.
But he could. This is where, if you were imposing that after the event, you'd go, well, yeah, obviously Larson had the better championship, but because they all set out knowing what the game is,
Well, you got to play by the rules. haven't
exactly.
you?
And
Yeah.
to be fair to Logano,
Like,
he got the job done at the right times, didn't
Yeah.
he? So
I guess my counterpoint would be, you said outwardly that the Le Mans weighs heavier than all the other WEC
Yeah.
rounds, quite rightly. I would say you could say the same thing about the playoff rounds
Well,
for NASCAR in
It's
terms
a
of.
bit like boxing. This is a lovely term that they call the championship rounds the 11th and 12th round, because most non-title fights only go 10 rounds. So they have this term, the championship rounds, which I think is a lovely term, and it sort of applies to this, even though it's not a championship. But
not so lovely in this case. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's,
Yeah.
It
I
is what
don't
it
like
is.
it.
So you
but-
weight those races, those pressure moments much higher than the
Yeah.
20, 30 other rounds that make up the regular
Yeah.
season after they've picked up their regular season win, and you can sort of check out, come back, do a Calabroth and Pera, try some other cars,
Yeah.
and do it again. And that's why I think you've got to push them for higher, because when it counts, they've won races.
So one day, would someone just do they win a race in the regular season, take a few months off,
Yeah.
focus on getting the cars ready for the championship 12 or whatever, 16, wherever it starts off.
Yeah.
12, isn't it? 16 it starts off.
Who's
And
to
then
say
just go
they,
bang, bang, bang. You could do could you win the NASCAR Cup on the
Fewest
basis
amount of
of
races.
5 or 6 outings?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I've won the Daytona 500. I'm going to wait for several months now.
Going to go off and do
It's a big
something
risk.
else. Going to do Benelux
Yeah.
Carrera.
yeah. Although
WRC.
yeah. All I would say is maybe they do, but we're just not aware of it in terms of they will prepare using other
Yes.
races.
Yes, I'm
with-
sure you're right.
Because
That's
they
much more
obviously
sensible
they
answer.
know the calendar, so they
Well,
know where these key races
yeah.
go and go, right,
I'll tell you what I would
Dress
do.
rehearsals.
Make the last round unknown venue.
spin a wheel in Vegas. Just
Literally,
spin a roulette
don't
wheel.
tell anyone until
Oh,
like
yeah.
the week before and go,
Yeah.
right, the NASCAR finale is at Road America. And everyone goes, oh, God. Could have some real fun with the format.
That would certainly shake it up.
Yeah, anyway, gone massively off piece there. Right, so number 14, Lawrence Vantor. Have we had two brothers in the top 50 before?
Oh, I
Oh,
don't-
presumably we've had both Van Tours in before, have we?
Have
Not.
they in the same year? That's good.
I would have thought so.
Yeah, could well be.
someone
We
should,
should have
Anyone
done our
else?
homework.
we should have looked this up before.
Should have done. It's just occurred to me.
Is
a good question.
Are there any other candidates actually who?
I mean, now, if
Yeah.
you were to do top 50 retrospectively,
Uh-huh.
which I have toyed the idea with, but it's just impossible
Oh.
because you need the correspondence to
Schumachers.
do it. The Schumachers.
Yeah.
The Schechters. Not
Actually,
sure
the
Ian
Schumachers
would have made
probably
it.
would have been
Yeah,
2002.
two.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm trying to get it in
yeah,
there
yeah,
right.
good
would
point.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, it's still very impressive. You'd be quite proud as parents, I think. So
Yes.
he's up in 14th though.
Yeah.
So talk us through why Lawrence is so high.
Well, he's a world champion for a start.
It helps.
It helps, wins the WEC with Kevin Estre and Andre Lotterer. There wasn't much to choose between him and Kevin Estre in that championship winning Porsche Penske Motorsport entry. We're going to be talking about Kevin Estre later, spoiler alert. And there are reasons why Kevin Estre, or perhaps one reason why Kevin Estre gets the nod over him. But Lawrence had a very strong year. Also did a few successful races in GTs as well. So yeah.
One question I have for you is the fact that Andre Lotterer, who's the third driver in that, the third best of those three, indicative of how good Esther and Vantor are, or is it more indicative of the fact that Lotterer is... Because he was... Oh, there was a time when you could argue
he
was the
nailed
best
on
driver outside of Formula One.
Absolutely in the mix. When he was doing Japan as well.
And so is he fallen away? Is he off his peak?
He's the wrong side of 40. Yeah. He wasn't a match for them. He had some good races and some bad races. He wasn't particularly good at Le Mans, which I actually thought that might be a race where he came good in. It was actually the reverse. I think there's a number of factors. Clearly, he's not the driver he was. Clearly, we've seen these cars are not the sort of pointy prototypes in which he excelled. And I think if you go back, think of the Audi was a different car to the Porsche he then drove for the Porsche LMP1 that he drove for one season. And he was going in to a team where there were people who'd been there from the beginning, your Bernhards and Yarnis, and he didn't look like a match for them in that year. But I think that was also down to driving style, or the style that the driving style that the car demanded. It was sort of less of a pointy car than the Audis, and that's what he really when he was at his best, and Andre Lotterer in his pomp was, I was going to say the best driver in LMP1, but I think you've probably summed it up even better. The best driver outside of Formula One,
but now excluded from that list in the future because he's won Grand Prix. Unbelievable.
He was in. Do you remember the feature we did? The top 50 best 50 drivers never to reach F1. Lotterer was quite high up in that list, but then sort of ruled himself out.
Yeah,
when he did out qualify a future Indy 500 winner.
Yes. Yeah.
So we've gone a bit off.
We have
there.
Let's get it back on track. Right.
So
transition.
Absolutely, Vantor, top line contender. Just did the business in that car. Some moments where I thought,
proper driver in a world championship.
Had a bit of a nightmare at the final race, but I let him off that one because it was more or less done and dusted there.
Yeah. So I'm going to make maybe it's not that bold actually. I was going to say bold prediction for the 13th place man. This is this will be his worst position in the top 50 for the next 5, 6, 8 years.
10 years.
10 years. 13th, Oscar Piastri. He's going to be in the top 10 for the next.
Should he not have been in the top 10 this year?
No, I'm going to argue against that because there were weekends where he was AWOL. Norris, like Singapore, he let the side down there. He should have been in the 20-second gap between Norris and Verstappen, and he was too busy coming back from not qualifying properly. And so when he was good, as you expect with a quick rookie, when he was good, he was absolutely there, giving Norris all sorts of trouble. And then when he wasn't, you didn't notice.
So early in his F1 career, you can't expect that level of consistency.
Exactly. So I think he's
quite open about that as well in terms of not having it
there's a couple of people in the top 10 that
you would argue.
Okay. Well, I was thinking, hang on.
We'll save that for the final episode, the 10 to 1.
I guess the big asterisk is his trajectory is only up in your mind in terms of this is the lowest he'll be.
It's got to be.
You would certainly think so. I don't know. I have no reason to believe otherwise, but I think where he is now, that is the correct.
He's a cool dude as well, isn't he? He's an analytical guy. You can just tell the moment he gets into wheel-to-wheel stuff with Verstappen, there's going to be no nonsense there. Well, we saw it at Abu Dhabi, didn't we?
Yeah.
He could have given Max more room with the McLaren Constructors' Championship on the line, and he went, nah.
Yeah,
and it was Verstappen's mistake, but Piastri's also helped him there, I think.
Yeah.
So I'd have called it a racing incident, but anyway, there we go.
Yeah, but I totally agree. The couple of weekends we went missing, for want of a better phrase, that's pushed him down this list compared to others for me.
Yeah, but I'm not holding Monza against him because he was the only one of the McLaren team who that was acceptable for that to happen. If he's not been told not to, and you're an up-and-coming guy, you're going, I'm going to send it round the outside.
Yeah.
I feel like McLaren should have said, Oscar.
Yeah, and the highlights.
Could you not?
Yeah, the Azerbaijan win in particular, that was
took the opportunity when it was there.
Class
Yeah, killer
performance.
instinct.
Yeah, killer, and then withstood that pressure from Leclerc for pretty much the entire race afterwards. Didn't even really flinch, so fair play. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see he's already got the respect of the other front runners as well. Like they just know because they all know, don't they? It's, it's like fighter pilots. There's a kind of that respect kind of there already.
You almost have this sort of file, don't you? A top driver will have a file on all the other drivers in their minds and will know what he's going to do and what he might do and what he might not do.
Well, Verstappen went and apologised to Piastri afterwards. He wouldn't have done it if it was Lance Stroll. I don't think he would he?
Yeah, good point.
That's not bashing Stroll. I mean, he'll be because he won't have been on.
It's the mark of respect that he has for Piastri. Yes, and you would certainly say they all have that.
Yeah. Right. Let's move on to number 12, Nicholas Nielsen. Another one from your. Well, I think that's indicative of how good sports car racing is now. We've been talking for a few years about the golden era arriving because of the LMDH and LMH rules. It's here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So up at 12 is this year's Ferrari standout.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm not saying that he did anything wrong last year. It's just that sort of Fuoco was the sort of standout driver, and Pierre Guidi, of course, in the other car. You know, I can't remember how many Ferrari drivers we had in the top 50 last year, but I would say possibly as many as 3.
Because James Collado made it in as well, I think, didn't he?
Pierre Guidi would have made it also with some GT heroics
points,
there. And Fuoco made it. This year, only one has made it. But Nielsen, for me, he won Le Mans, and he won Le Mans for Ferrari. He was in the car at the end. He withstood some amazing pressure. What he had to do on the difficult track surface while saving fuel. In those conditions, the Toyota was the faster car. There wasn't much between the Ferrari and the Toyota over the whole race, but certainly in those sort of damp and wet conditions, the Toyota was quicker. He held on to win the race. He had the issue with the door not shutting properly. He had to come in because then it meant it was an early stop. He had to really go in for some fuel saving, and it was just a really strong performance when he was under pressure, and he didn't buckle, and Ferrari win Le Mans again. And it's those standout moments that propel people into this list and to near the top of top 10.
It doesn't get much bigger either, does it?
No,
trying to win Le Mans for Ferrari in the final stint, went up against it.
Exactly.
No, that's mega. That was an unbelievable drive. And I know it's a bit facetious when we're saying about the NASCAR playoffs just winning that, but for me, they're not comparable in this situation.
Right.
That is a special moment, and as an overall season as well, I thought it did very well. So fully deserving of his place in this.
Absolutely. Right, well, let's get to the last driver in this episode, this section. Number 11, George Russell, who I think it's fair to say, Haydn, we kind of had a fairly late change on this to move him up a little bit because it's a little bit under the radar in the sense that you can underestimate him beating Lewis Hamilton 24-6 in qualifying if you include the sprint contest. But actually, I feel like he was also, bearing in mind of 2023 was not good. Like Hamilton thrashed him really in the 23. To come back from that and actually have the better of him overall, very impressive.
Yeah, really, really strong. I think when we first started to put the initial elements together for this list, it was before Vegas or around that time, and obviously what he was able to do there helped him, talking about recency bias. But you would certainly say over the course of that season, as you've just said about in terms of just completely outperforming Hamilton in the quali in spec, and didn't do anything wrong to lose the Belgium win. That was sort of not his fault at all, and pulled out his own strategy. And had he had a bit more for lunch, he probably would have kept that weight inside himself, and it would have been all right. But no, it was very strong, and taking it to Verstappen as well gives us a bit of needle as well. I know that doesn't really come into the top 50.
Just to be clear, we don't.
That doesn't come into it.
That might affect how you like the driver, but not where we are in the 50.
I think just as what I would say to expand that point properly is using the context of also team leader status with Hamilton heading off. Again, with that narrative thing, he knew that this was coming from the start of the year, and you would say as the season's progressed, he's had that pressure on his shoulders when the Mercedes car hasn't been the standout vehicle this year, but he has sort of led from that front, taken on that status, taken on that pressure, and got better, I think, as the season's gone on in my eyes. So that sort of elevates him a little bit more.
Where was he originally in the list? Sort of lower.
He was in this bracket,
okay.
But behind Piastri, I think, for a while. Wasn't
it would have been mid-teen. So it's given him hook over.
Is he the real deal yet? Is he the round full package?
Well, there's still a few mistakes, but I would say everyone in Formula One made mistakes this year, including the world champion. So I think that shows you how close and competitive and high pressured it is. Getting in faultless season over 24 Grand Prix.
Well, that's a good point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but Canada was perhaps a race he let slip away. But I like that sort of. He's got that, like we're saying, killer instinct. He never looked like he looked comfortable running at the front of the Grand Prix in Las Vegas. When he had the car that was the quickest, he stuck it on pole and he disappeared. And he never looked like losing the race, did he? He defended when he needed to from Leclerc, and then he disappeared. And the Spa thing, it's his call, wasn't it? So maybe it was a little bit fortuitous that turned out to be the right strategy. Then very much undone by the misfortune afterwards. But that's the sort of thing that a top driver does, isn't it? They make that work. They win a race that's maybe winnable.
Yeah, I think
he's got that in the locker.
Shown credentials. It'll be a little bit like Norris of this year, is when let's assume he does get into a title fight in Formula One properly for the first time. That'll be in the case of, right, let's see if he's up against Verstappen or whoever, can he make it into a title fight properly?
Yeah, there's a certain chippiness about him, which I really like, actually.
I think he's more hard-nosed than Norris, say.
Yes.
I think that Norris has learned how to race against Max Verstappen during the 2024 campaign. I think George Russell already knew, just hasn't had the opportunity yet, is my gut feeling, because we haven't really seen enough of it.
Yes.
And you can tell every time Russell does something, it really winds Verstappen up. He really, again, he's on his radar. He's not just, who's that guy? He's like, this guy's going to be a pain in my backside at some point if he gets in a quick car. I think Verstappen knows it. Right, well, I think that's it for this episode. That's it for our fourth part of our of All Sports top 50 drivers of 2024. Our marathon top 50. Yeah, thanks for staying with us. If you missed the previous episode, you can catch them in the channel. There's a link below. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back again soon for the final rundown from 10 to 1.